and welcome to Crochet with Cisca. In today's video, I'll be showing us how to crochet this beautiful skirt, and I'll be using my locally made yarn here in Nigeria together with a 5mm crochet hook. What I'm going to do first is to create the waistband, and I'm going to be doing chains to a waist circumference of 20 inches. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to do my slip knots, and then I'm going to begin to chain until I have a chain length of about 20 inches. So here is my first chain. Here is 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 87 chains here. This is what gave me 20 inches. So what I'm going to do is to close this off to make this round, and I'm going to insert my hook into the first chain, which is right here, and we're going to do a slip stitch. So I'll just pull up my yarn and then pull through this loop. Okay, so we have closed this off. What I'm going to do next is to chain 2, and then I'm going to begin to do 1 double crochet in each stitch. So I'll move to the next stitch, do 1 double crochet, and I'm going to continue to do this until I get right back to where I started. So 1 double crochet in each stitch. So after doing my double crochet stitch all the way to the end, I'm going to come under the chain 2 that I did here, and what I'm going to do right there is to do a slip stitch, and then I'm going to chain 2. So what we want to do for the next row is actually a front post, back post, double crochet stitch. So I'll start with the front post. So I want you to see exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to yarn over, and then I'm going to insert my hook where I did the chain 2 and come under this first double crochet stitch, just like this. Pull my yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over again, and pull through 2 loops. So what I just did now is called a front post double crochet stitch. The next stitch that I'm going to do right now is the back post. So I'm going to yarn over. Now I'm going to come from the back, okay, and go over the second double crochet stitch here. So just like this, and I'll pull my yarn through and then do my double crochet stitch at the back there. So we're going to continue to do this until we get right back to where we started. So right here is a front post, another front post double crochet stitch. All right, and right here is a back post double crochet stitch. So it is very, very simple. So I've come to the end of the first row, and I ended with a back post. So what I'm going to do right now is to do a slip stitch under there, and I'm going to chain 3 for round 2. So that's the second chain, and right here is the third chain. Basically going to continue the way I did the first front post back post stitch. What I'm going to do next, of course, the first stitch here was a front post, so I'm just going to continue to do it like that. Do a front post there, and the next stitch is going to be a back post. So just like this, I do my back post and continue to repeat until I get to the very end. So this row that I'm crocheting right now is going to be my last row for the waistband. So after doing a back post double crochet in the last stitch, what I'm going to do is to do a slip stitch under this chain 3 here, and the next thing I'm going to do is to chain 2. Okay, so what we are going to be doing right now is to begin to crochet the skirt part. So I'm going to move to the next stitch. So what I'm going to do is to do 2 double crochet in the first stitch. So here is the first one, and right here is the second double crochet stitch. Then I'm going to chain 1, and in that same space I'm going to do 2 double crochet stitches. So another 2 double crochet stitch. All right, so basically in that space we have a total of 4 double crochet stitches. Then what I'm going to do next is to chain 1, I'm going to skip one stitch and repeat what I've done here in the next stitch. So 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet in that same space, chain 1, skip 1 and repeat in the next stitch. So I'm just going to continue to do this until I get to the end here. So after coming to the end of the first row for our V crochet stitch, what I'm going to do is to come right under the chain 2 and I'm going to do a slip stitch. So I have a V crochet stitch here. Of course, we usually end by chaining 1, skipping the next stitch, which is this last stitch here. So what I'm going to do next is to close off with a slip stitch under the chain 2. So I'm going to begin row 2 now by chaining 2. Now what I'm going to do is to come in the middle of this V stitch and I'm going to do another V stitch. But this next one that I'm going to start with is going to be in threes. So I'm going to do 3 double crochet here. So here's my first double crochet. I'm going to do another one. And here is the third. So after doing the third double crochet stitch, I'm going to chain 1 and do another 3 double crochet stitch in that same space. Okay, so here is the first double crochet stitch right here. I'm going to do 2 more. So here is the second, and right here is the third. Okay. So after completing the first V stitch with 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet, I'm going to come to the part right here where we chained 1. In the previous row, I'm going to do 1 double crochet stitch. Then I'll come to the middle of the next V stitch and I'm going to do 3 double crochet stitch. So there's the first one, right here is the second, and right here is the third. I'm going to chain 1, then do another 3 double crochet stitch in there. So the V stitch that we have in the first row is different from the V stitch that we have in the second. All right, so I'm just going to continue like that. So I've completed it for this one. Next stitch, where we have the chain 1 in the previous row, what we are going to do is to do 1 double crochet in there, and I'm going to repeat like that until I get to the end here. So after doing the V stitch, we have a chain 1 right here. So what I'm going to do under that place is to do a double crochet stitch. So that is our last stitch for row 2. The next thing that I'm going to do is to do a slip stitch to close off my row 2. So I'll come under the chain 2 here, pull my yarn through and pull through this loop. Now what we are going to do next is to begin round 3, and I'm going to chain 2. Then I'm going to do a V stitch just like we have for row 2. So I yarn over, come to the middle of the stitch, pull my yarn through. We're going to be doing 3 double crochet stitches in there. So that's the first one. I'll do the second, and right here is the third. Then I'm going to chain 1 and do another 3 double crochet stitch in that same space. Okay, so just like this. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is to come to the top of the single double crochet stitch that we have right here, and what I'm going to do there is to do a single double crochet stitch. Then I'm going to move to the next V stitch and repeat what we did for this one. Okay, so 1 double crochet right in the middle of the previous V stitch. Okay, so here is the second one, right here is the third, then chain 1. Okay, do another 3 double crochet stitch in that same space. So 1, 2 and 3. Then I'm going to come to the top of the double crochet stitch that we have right here. I'm going to do 1 double crochet stitch. So I'll continue to repeat this, the cluster V stitch followed by the double crochet stitch, okay, until we get right back to where we started. So after finishing off round 3 with the single double crochet stitch here, I'm going to close the round off by doing a slip stitch under the chain 2, and of course I'm going to chain 2 to begin round 4. So round 4 is going to follow the same pattern as round 3. So I have done up to row 4 for the skirt part, that is minus the waistband. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now I want to change the color of my yarn to white. So what I want to do right now is to do my slip stitch right here. So I'll come under the chain 2, do my slip stitch, and then I'm going to cut my yarn, pull my yarn through. Now what I'm going to do is to pull my white yarn, I'm going to pull it under the slip stitch. Then I'm going to chain 2 right there. Okay, we can go on to hide this yarn later. And what I'm going to do next is to move to the next V stitch and begin to repeat our pattern. So I'm going to come right there. Here is the first double crochet stitch, and I'm going to do this 2 more times, chain 1, then do 3 double crochet in that same space. So right here is the third. So I chain 1 and 3 double crochet in there. So 1, 2, and 3. So I'm basically going to be doing this white yarn for 2 rows. I've done red for 4 rows, so I'm doing white for 2 rows, I'm doing red for 4 rows, white for 2 rows, like that, until I get to my desired length. So the way I changed my yarn here for the white is the same way I'm going to change my yarn for the red parts when I get to that stage. So after crocheting the entire skirt, this is what it looks like. I did 4 rows, first 2 rows of white, 5 rows, and then 2 rows of white, and now I'm ending with 2 rows because I've gotten to my desired length. So what I'm going to do right now is to close the bottom row, and I'm just going to do a slip stitch under the chain 2, okay, and then pull my yarn through and go on to hide the rest of the yarn and check other places where I have yarn sticking out and hide them. The next I'm going to do is to crochet a string that I'm going to use to, sort of like adjust the waistline to the accurate waistline of my child. This is actually a little bit bigger, so of course I need it to be fitted around her waist. In order for me to do that, I'm just going to do chains to about 3 times the circumference of the waist that we have here, so that we'll have enough to tie around the waist. So go on to create chains to about 3 times the circumference of the waist that you have here. So I ended up doing the chains to about 2.5 times the waist circumference. Now what I'm going to do is to pass this through the posts that we have done right here at the waistband area. I'm just going to insert this tail end right through my yarn needle, and we're going to start passing it from the middle of the front of the skirt. So right here is the middle of the back, so around this part will be the middle of the front. So I'm just going to leave about 2 posts and start from the one beside it, and then I'm going to end right here. So I'll just use this now, pass it through here until I get right back to this part. So I'll just keep passing it through like that until I end up right here. After passing it through, this is what I have. What I'm going to do right now is to just create a knot around the end of the rope that we have here. And that's it, guys. We are done with our skirt tutorial. So after creating the knots, I'll just cut off the excess yarn that is right at the tip. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, kindly give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, turn on the bell so you get updates when I post new videos, and I'll be seeing you guys in my next tutorial. Bye!